So in the last video, I was discussing how it's very easy when you go into describing these different the different views of each political party, and when you go into specific scenarios like, politically correctness and polite speech and not speaking in vulgarity or, whatever. In these topics, when you're going in, when people are going into them, they very easily and very often go into just generalizations about the other side. So, like, all liberals, want you to be politically correct all the time, and they don't want you to say offensive things about gay people, and they don't want you to say offensive things about so-and-so, but when it's about religion, or when it's about Ivanka Trump, or when it's about whoever, it's completely okay with them. And I kind of tied off the end of the point there that they were sort of tying that back to Sam B at some point, when she said the cunt thing, and how I don't even think you could find an instance where Sam B actually advocated for, like, political correctness or not swearing, because a lot of the stuff she does, especially going back to the Daily Show days, all has everything to do with just, like, offensive language, sort of playing at the edges, at the fringes of what's socially acceptable. It's I would say that's part of her comedy routine, part of her shtick, part of her, persona in comedy. And I don't think you would find that token thing where she's like, well, this conservative just said something really offensive about gay people. We need to be, or this conservative said something really offensive towards the mentally challenged community. See, it's hard to even keep up with the polite pronouns here. The polite terminology here, because, I feel like every time it becomes a new one, every time it becomes a new intellectual terminology, a new proper terminology, it still gets redefined by the bullies who just start, oh, he's mentally challenged. But going back to this, I don't think you'd ever find an instance where Sam B was just like, don't say retarded, that's bad, that's offensive. You can never say mentally retarded, even though I'm pretty sure some scientists in the past probably said that, like, a bunch of times. I think that was originally the term. Like, how many, like, dumb trolls do you know that, like, from the get-go, from the beginning, would have been, like, the person to look up in the dictionary, mentally retarded, what does this mean? What does the word retard mean? Like, not associated with people with mental issues, but more so, what does that word mean originally? What is, aside from the mental part, what does retardation mean to begin with? I don't think you find someone going there like, oh, like, I feel like that was a very intellectual term back in the day, and you would not find a troll who's like, the sarcophagus of pie. No, I don't even think they'd know what sarcophagus means, which has nothing to do with pie. So, you're not gonna find Sam B saying, like, we need to be politically appropriate here on this subject. You'll find, like, Nancy Pelosi saying that, but then this comes back to the huge conservative generalization, where it'll be like, well, since they saw a video of Nancy Pelosi saying we need to be politically appropriate and we need to be polite in our demeanor, then they'll, like, you know, they'll be like, yeah, liberals are just all about politically correctness, you know? And then when they see Sam B, they'll be like, that's a gotcha moment! See, liberals are always talking about that politically correct. What hypocrites? And it's always the what hypocrites thing. And so the most recent one, as I've pointed out before in the last video, was about this the Red Hen incident and the baker incident with the gay couple that was getting married. It's an interesting one when you think about it, because you're like, first question, is this hypocrisy? Well, I'll get to that. But more so, again, once again it goes into this thing of just generalization. It's like, yeah, every liberal was a proponent of defending this not the baker's right to discriminate, but to inactively discriminate. Yeah, but the the gay people's rights to get service, and then all of a sudden they're up in arms about this or all of a sudden they're A-okay. They're up in arms about that, but then they're A-okay, you know, cool with the discrimination against this public figure, Mike Huckabee's daughter, this respectable woman, you know, pull the suit kind of thing, you know. Oh, this respectable woman, tie the tie, pull this pantsuit. Or, well, does she use a pantsuit? I don't know what she wears. You don't see many women in politics with the ties. Actually, you don't see women with the ties in general. What am I talking about? That's only, like, people trying to make some sort of art statement. Nonetheless, I would love to see that aspect of things. Let's jump away from this gendered clothing. Let's get some women in suits and ties, and let's see some of these let's see some of these guys in some pantsuits or some like colorful flowers, maybe a dress. Oh, this would drive some conservatives crazy. But again, this is where most people go into those assumptions. It's like, well, all conservatives are against gays, obviously. They're all deplorables. It's like, really? Really? I'm pretty sure I know many conservatives who would, like, happily, like, get into a pink dress for you. And start some sassy talk or something. And not in an offensive way, more in like a bi-curious kind of way, because that's just who they are. Yeah. So yeah, the going back to it, this Red Hen incident, this bakery incident, where they're just like, oh, that's the hypocrisy. These liberals, they know it. They were for this one, but now they're against this one. There's two problems here. One is the generalization, which I focused on highly in the last video. It's like, okay, well, you know, you're gonna get a different view if you go to like Nancy Pelosi versus like Maxine Waters. Like, Nancy Pelosi is like, well, incrementalism, we don't want that much change. I believe everyone just wants, everyone wants this, that, and the other thing. And then Maxine Waters is just like, rise up! Protest! Like, get angry! Get your pitchforks, everyone! Basically, and I'm not saying she's inciting riot. All I'm saying is, fuck. I mean, there's a different there's a fine line between like an aggressive protest that really effectively gets things done, and people just like going on a tirade against people and like attacking anyone. Um, if that doesn't happen, great. If it happens, also look out for false flags, because a lot of these things start completely peaceful to begin with, and it's like, you really think that these people who are trying to be civil are all of a sudden, like, rioting on the streets? Please. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, everyone gets... I guess that's the thing, is that when emotions ride up, they can get to all sorts of crazy levels. I am great with tangents. So, generalizations are the first thing that some conservatives and liberals who are trying to pin down the other side do. Then the second thing is this hypocrisy stand. They're like, it's the assumption that, this person's taking a stand for one thing, and then they're taking a complete 180 and doing the same thing, a different way. They have no values in this case, is the argument. The problem there is people are complex. And a lot of people will take stands in a more focused manner. So you'll get people, who value religion and say, well, I stand for the free speech of just religion. I don't really care too much about free speech in total. What I care about really, in general, primarily is the religion, and I have a minor value in free speech. So those kind of mixed together, but primarily I'm defending religion from my sort of loyalty of beliefs towards it kind of perspective. And that's what you'll get from some of these people. And you'll get it on the other side too with the liberals. With some of these liberal people too, where it's just like, yeah, I totally respect, I totally don't want to discriminate against, homosexuals and other things, but when it comes to protesting, in a discriminatory manner, a public figure who's in the public light, abso-fucking-lutely. And then they'll say, I'm not a hypocrite. The problem here, then, is when the same exact liberals, because I've seen this happen, the same exact liberal then just goes and says, well, it's not hypocritical when I do it, but it's damn well hypocritical when they say it. It's like, well, wait a second. If you're making a distinction, that says that your action is on a different, more bridged set of, more complex set of values here, and that you're not doing the same, you're not doing the same exact thing to begin with, then can't you say that about the conservative end of it as well? Well, the conservatives who are defending this baker are defending, aren't defending a public figure. Let's just say that. They're not defending, they're not defending an elected official or the administration of an elected official or whatever. They're not defending that person. So it's possible to say that they value people in an authoritative role and think they deserve more respect than a gay person. Now, you can say at that point in time that that's not hypocrisy, and I think that's a better argument. Because then at that point in time it's like, well, okay, I think that these people should have to serve a public figure. This freedom argument that I had before, I guess that's a part of the hypocrisy side. That's really maybe the meat of it. Um, but the bottom line is, like a hierarchy of values. You weigh a certain value over another, and if you're gonna make a differentiate at any point in time between one action and another and say, no, this one's completely different from that one because, and therefore, this thing. Now, if you got a conservative to say, I think, a very libertarian view of we need to have these people make a stand for like their freedom to choose whatever they do and whoever they serve, whatever they make in their workplace. They need that freedom, their ability to do whatever they want in whatever circumstance. If you're gonna make that freedom stand and not have and just absolute, like in an absolute way, absolute freedom all the time, no matter what, then you can call them a hypocrite because they're not making any distinctions. So there are a million distinctions that can be made in this circumstance. There's the public figure. Some people argue that one is specifically discrimination against gay people just because they're gay, something that they don't choose. I could totally see on the other end conservatives saying no, it's based on their actions. For some reason, like the action of marriage or the action of lying in the same bed with another man or some such nonsense like that. And in which case you might be like, okay, yeah, they're both actions. One's discriminating the actions of an administration, and one's discriminating the actions of of a gay couple. It's not a great argument to begin with because then anyone who wants to discriminate against a gay person could just easily be like, well, no, I just assumed that that this guy just lies in the same bed as a bunch of other guys all the time, and that's my religious freedoms. But I guess that's part of it too, as I would argue for people who are probably on that side of the aisle, at least in a niche. For people who specifically believe in that ideology, I'm not going to say all of them because I don't know. I haven't met all of them. No one has. That it's religious freedom that they primarily care about, not freedom in totality. And always jump into these, skipping a beat on my thoughts here. So I'm sure I've lots of open-ended, unclosed topics in this thing. But there's another place to think of, is that I already lost it. Well, the distinctions are key examples. But let me go back to the hypocrisy for a second. Whenever someone takes a stand for two sides with no distinctions, they say, well, no, if a liberal goes, we need to defend the gay marriage on this side, and we need to defend, or rather, we need to say, we need to defend the gays' right to get the cake at this bakery on this side, and then we have absolutely every right to go after this, this administrative person on the other side at the Red Hen. See, if you put that position in sort of a totality, where it's like, no, every single circumstance we should control control this for a more respectful, undiscriminatory environment, if we only want an undiscriminatory environment every time, if they took that stand, and then, switched, did a back and forth, jump back and forth, that would be hypocrisy. But the problem then is, if you had the Republicans doing the exact opposite of that, taking a stand for both sides, no differentiation between them, that would also be hypocrisy. It's not as if one side is a hypocrite and the other side isn't. No, if there are absolutely no distinctions in what you're making, and you're saying, like, I'm for, freedom to protest, freedom to discriminate, freedom to whatever in all circumstances, the only way you're not being a hypocrite is if you keep that consistent. So if it's not the case, then it's a number of other things. It's a matter of, human beings being imperfect, human beings, well, who's to say if that's perfect or not? Rather, human beings being inconsistent, or, wishy-washy, or, like, I feel this one second and then I feel that the other second. Which go conflicting. Humans being conflicting. Having values that conflict. I value this, but I value that. And sometimes this value stands above that value, and sometimes that value stands below this other value. So my opinions change, and I'm, a very, very complex person with very complex beliefs. I would say this is a generalization. I'm going to just say, because I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, I would say that most people on either side of the aisle are probably pretty complex with their beliefs, with their ideas, with their ideologies, because we all, who only has like one value that they hold true to? Who's only like, I only value integrity and consistency. I don't value loyalty. I don't value, kindness. I don't value respect. I don't value courtesy. I don't value... It's like no one's got a list of like 900 things that they don't value. Like, we all are part of the same society. We've all sort of grown up in the same planet. If I'm complex on my values, chances are a lot of other people on the other side are as well. So, with these shifts in values, with these shifts in what's important, with these shifts in culture, or in, what group you're taking a stand for, whether it be religion, or conservative, or Democrat, or a group of atheists that hoard together. I don't know if that really happens. I think it does. It's more of I imagine that's more of a think tank kind of intellectual circle, though, since they're not really like, it's not a faith-based kind of thing, Well, is it? I guess not in a certain way. If you're like confident that nothing exists, there's some degree of faith in science that goes into that, because you can't prove, or rather you can't disprove something that you don't have the parameters to prove to begin with. You can just say, well, you can't prove it. You can't prove God. You can't, and if you can't prove God, you can't disprove God either. Some atheists will go crazy over that. But I'm agnostic, so fuck off, all of you. So, everyone's got different values, so even if they are a hypocrite in these circumstances, it's to be somewhat expected, really. And I guess it's the point to which you can actually measure, okay, they don't really care about this value at all that they said they were about this much. If you're the type of person who's like, I value freedom sometimes in certain circumstances. I value, respect sometimes in some circumstances. I value loyalty sometimes in some circumstances. Whatever. Then that's honest. That's honest, and I wouldn't even call it hypocrisy at that point. I'd just call it, I'd call that's arguably consistency. You can be inaccurate about what your values are, though, and I think some people don't defend themselves well, because they're like, well, no, my values are this, this, and this. It's like, no, like, some people are just simplifying that. They're the entertainer. They're just cut and dry, clean, 2 minutes at a time kind of people. 2 words, like one word per second, 1 word per 20 words per, I don't know. 3 words per sentence. Let's go with that one. That makes a little more sense. But yeah, there could totally be instances where you get that hypocritical gotcha moment. But just be aware, if you're taking the exact opposite stand of that so-called hypocrite, you're also, by definition, a hypocrite. Because you're doing... They're weighing one value over, they're weighing one instance over another, and you're weighing that instance over the one previous. That kind of opposite is just straight up hypocritical if they are a hypocrite to begin with. So don't be that idiot. Don't be that idiot who's like, I'm taking the exact opposite stand, but they're the only one that's a hypocrite in this circumstance. Is like, I'm not a hypocrite because of this. Well, actually, if you're not a hypocrite because of that, and you're making the exact opposite stand, you're also defending them, and not necessarily in a good way. So yeah. And lastly, because I want to get all my thoughts in here, but I know I always just miss them in the excitement. Lastly, I'd like to break this one down a little more. The Sarah Huckabee Sanders instance, the red hen, is it hypocrisy? Be it that she's a public figure. So first off, we have to agree on the exact stand of both sides in both instances first. And we'd have to pin down one specific person who's for the baker and against the red hen, or for the red hen and against the baker. So I guess I'll just measure out the possible distinctions here. One is public figure. One's a public figure, not being served, and one's a gay couple getting married. Second distinction. One's one specifically doing actions that people disagree with, and the other, it could totally be based on something that they don't choose but just are. At the same time, that could be not a distinction at all, and it could just be specific actions that they do that are homosexual, that religious figures wouldn't want anyone gay or straight to do in general. In which case, no distinction, that would be a point of hypocrisy. But again, if you got the public figure versus the gay thing, that's a distinction to be made there. People can make that point of, well, no, I support the public figure, but I don't support I support the gays here, but I don't support the public figure. being, like one can be discriminated against, the other one can't, based on their actions. So those are some of the distinctions. I want to say there's one more that I have in mind that's just slipping me right now. If you got it, write it down. It's like, no, this is how I stand differently on this, because I want to see this diversity of people that exists in reality, where it's just like there's like a million people who have these different fringe ideas and different we're such a diverse society. I want to see that diversity in play. I want to be that, without being a sociologist or a social psychologist or something like that. I want to be able to know all these different circumstances, even if it's in a biased sort of like, well, these are just the people watching me kind of circumstance. I want to know. I'll be sure to be like, well, no, this person has that opinion. This person has that, takes that standard. That's where the difference is, You can't be so, take a step back towards humility. You can't know everyone. Even the social psychologists and and the sociologists, all these people probably, even they can't, fully encapsulate the totality of human belief, ideology, and expression, and of the belief, ideology, and expression of broad parties and broad groups. That's just, they're never gonna. You'd have to get the perfect full encapsulation. You can get a majority kind of thing. You can get a percentage. You could get that, but you could never get the totality unless you are you're doing your study on that totality. That's your study group. That's your group size is 7 billion people. Or 8 billion people, or the 2 or 3 billion people in America. You're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that. Certainly none of these broadcasters have that. Certainly none of these sociologists and social psychologists have that. They probably have more detailed information than most, so they're more expert on it, but they're not completist in that way. They don't have the full record, Well, this person and this person and this person, so it makes 3 in this group that believe this one thing, and then 30,000 over here that believe in this one, and then 29 over here that believe in this subsection of the thing. It's like, no, it's never gonna happen that way. You're never gonna be able to fully pin down the totality of a group. You can pin them down to the degree to which their ideology is consistent or is focused in to begin with. So, like conservatives versus liberals, there's some places that there's some flagpoles that they kind of stand on, some things that are consistent throughout, but the problem is there's multiple flagpoles. So you can find a conservative who's just in it for, who's just in it for the religious aspects. Well, these are people who stand up for my religious freedoms, so I'm voting for them. But I don't care about economics or social issues or whatever. And then you'll find other people who just have the flagpole of conservative economics. And then you'll find them all across the spectrum because, there are certain, you can at the very least define conservative ideologies. You can't say then and there that every conservative believes in this complete ideology of conservatism. No, you can be like, well, this is a point of conservative ideology. This is also a point of conservative ideology, and then recognize that there will be some conservatives with like a mix of liberal and conservative views, because that's how this society works. And we're like, I think the majority of voters are now independents at this point. So, and some of these people are only tied to these parties because of closed primaries and the fact that they, they side mostly with one of the views and values, not completely with it. Whereas, so they're like, well, I want to be able to go to the primary and affect the primary that I'm most compatible, that my views are most compatible with, That's why I'm still technically a registered Democrat, because I'm in a closed primary state. I have, let's see, not a single point in history voted for a Democratic or Republican candidate. I have voted. A little greener than most. But technically, I'm still a registered Democrat. I'm sure that makes Greens wanting to yank me in with a rope. Come on over. And I'm sure that makes some Democrats, not all of them. And again, don't generalize here. Don't generalize, folks. Don't be that person. And some Democrats being like, oh, shame on you. You didn't vote Hillary. It's your fault. Trump's elected. No, it's that's a collective effort, but primarily Hillary, because she had all the fucking power of campaign and that, all the money to do, it was her effort to make those voters for her to convince. Me loves tangents. So, to conclude, hypocrisy on the Red Hand incident? Depends. But mostly speaking, no, for either one. And I know both sides are hating me now because they're like, but that was my hypocrite moment. I was gonna say that conservatives were hypocrites. You're such a liar. You're such a Trump-tard. And then the conservatives will be like, oh, you're such a libtard. It's like, my tribe, I'm not huge on small loyalties. My tribe is the world, so and I'm more interested in integrity and honest facts to begin with. That's where I take my value stand. So don't get too caught up in where I don't only hone my beliefs on, the beliefs of other people in my group. Because that's what some people do, who are very loyal people, is they derive their sense of values, their sense of right and wrong beliefs, their sense of right and wrong, over the stand of the greater whole of their group. And that's how they believe, that's what they believe right and wrong is. I personally believe right and wrong has to do with much more objective and greater criteria than that. And that's why you'll see it has nothing to do with the group I associate with. It just doesn't. So don't make that slip up. Don't make that mistake. I know you might be the kind of person who does that yourself, and that's fantastically fine. There's some value with collecting together under one flag, under one umbrella, under one structure or organization. Chaos is almost the opposite of that. But, even that can become an illness to a certain extreme, and you need to implement some of these other values of right and wrong at a certain point. So, hold that flag up, because I'm not holding it up as high as you are. Hold up that flag of loyalty of beliefs, and I'll hold up the flag of, integrity of through more objective means. Enjoy your night, folks, and don't be generalizers, and don't jump the gun on hypocrisy. focus on those individuals, hit those Mike Huckabees who take a very specific stand on both sides, and then jump to this MS-13 comment later on. And even there might be distinctions if you really think about it. I'm not sure. I'm not going to think about it. It's not worth my time. If it's worth your time, have fun with it.